I need 2 pots of coffee now, not just one. One for this show and one for everything else. Artist Journal, October 18th, 2022, Berlin. My name is Adrian Pocobelli, artist, reporter. Thank you for the sales. I had a good laugh, and it made me smile, and it just made me happy. So thank you for all that. Look at this awesome new work by Byte by Bit. I'm loving this series of the nebulas done in pixelated form with retro tools. We're going to come back to Byte by Bit. And the colors and everything. There's just something about it. He has, I assume it's a he, but Byte by Bit has stumbled onto something. So pixel work, 1988 PC Paint 3.1 Phantom Streak Nebula. So we're going to see more of Byte by Bit's work later in this program. First, I just want to thank everybody for those sales. This was awesome. Look at this. So yeah, so all for a Tezos, so nice and cheap. And again, I just want to thank everyone. That's a son, Sean Luke and OX Benji, and Rune Tune, and Dan Control. So thank you, everybody. That is totally awesome. I totally appreciate it. Makes my day. And, you know, these sorts of things, they make you, and Batby, by the way, and Bubba Boo, and Hologram Gallery. So, because these sales, ambiguous, that was in June. So these sales, they really do encourage you, because then I was like, oh, I guess people actually do like this series, or something about it. So it's nice, because maybe you make more. So it's kind of fun. On to what's going on here. State of the Art presented by Tezos at Paris Plus PAL Art Basel will be on view from Wednesday, October 19th to Sunday, October 23rd with a live minting experience by FX Hash. So all to say, if you're in Paris or nearby, this starts tomorrow. Okay? Tezos Events, Paris Plus, State of the Art. So there's probably going to be some talks and everything. Again, just a reminder that you should be building your community on Tezos as well. Unknown Collector just talking about the life of an artist theme. Stop thinking about floor prices and stuff like that. He's addressing artists. Mint artworks you are proud of and forget about collectors that don't know anything about art. Don't let them treat you like profile picture projects. You don't have a floor price. Every piece you create could be your masterpiece or nothing. And this is so true, and it's kind of true, like it's actually especially true for Web3, and it's kind of a double-edged sword. In a sense, he's kind of totally right. Like, it's not your typical art crowd, but that's also the charm, because the traditional art world kind of needs disrupted. I was thinking to myself, if you need consultants, and I appreciate there is a role for art consulting. One could argue this is what I'm doing here in a certain sort of way. If you're not neck deep in blockchain art, this becomes a free consultation of sorts. But what I was thinking to myself is, if you need art consultants to start, for your art purchases, maybe things have gone off the track a little bit. If things need to be, you got to hire someone, pay them a whole bunch of money, so that you can figure out what to buy with art, which is true in the traditional art world. Maybe things have gone off the track, and in Web3, it's completely different. It's just what people like. And so I like that. Always back to Ballard and Max Ernst, as we're going to see again. And of course, Ernst was a huge influence on Ballard. But always back to Ballard, he used the term naive in a positive way. He described Andy Warhol and William Burroughs as naives of the media landscape. And what he meant by that was they were just kind of honest about how they saw reality and were just trying to come to make their own truth. They weren't overly encumbered by the tradition, even though they're both neck deep in tradition, particularly Burroughs, always reading Shakespeare, according to, Kerouac and Ginsberg. So, and talking about it. So all to say, I don't want to get off the track here, all to say there is a naivete in Web3 art collecting And that's a double-edged sword in a sense, but I embrace it and I love it because I think it's long overdue because things have become so top-heavy, so encumbered in the traditional, what I call the contemporary art world, for lack of a better term, that the innocence is gone, the naivete is gone, and naivete can be a positive in Ballard's sense. And what I'm trying to get at here in a long-winded way is art collecting on Web3 has a naivete to it, but I think that's a positive. It can be seen in a positive light, and that's how I use the term, is positively. It's just trying to find its own truth. And so, but in that process, you're not going to necessarily get the most sophisticated outcomes all the time. Okay, so that's the double-edged sword. I embrace it though, and overall it's pretty generous. You can be, those works that we're just showing, they were at Tezos each. They were just sitting on the sidelines forever. So all to say, no matter, not everything is going to be, its worth is going to be seen right away. That's part of the deal here. But you got to just embrace that, which I think is what Unknown Collector is saying, is basically focus on your work. Which is what you should be doing. Don't worry, don't get discouraged if you're not making sales. That can all happen in a day, 6 months from now. Continuing on, Popple was on the front page of Object, so congratulations to him. They had 5 of his works. Spogel Maskinen was there the other day. So Popple having a bit of a moment. And of course there's that piece. And look, they showed all his pieces here. So we've covered a lot of these actually. And these are very low resolution versions. So I have some reservations showing this here. We should show the real ones. But I've already shown a lot of these works. So congratulations to him. Well earned. And look who else is on the front page of OpenSea. Ezra Eslin. So artists we've been talking about here. Stop It is on OpenSea's front page. So remember the Where's Waldo kind of artist, illustrator with an edge. And it's interesting, there's probably some bodies. I don't know if OpenSea has seen everything that's going on. I'm sure they have. So anyway, and you got some fires. Classic Ezra Eslin, who continues to impress. So congratulations to both those artists. Very interesting what's going on there. Françoise Gamma has a work on Foundation. I thought this was a pretty nice work. Usually Françoise Gamma does these figures with lines and does them in a billion different ways, which kind of creates an interesting kind of credibility, and does it regularly. So you can tell they're really exploring a concept. But I have to say, this background is like a whole new, it's a whole new way of looking at the work, and I actually quite like it. So that is available, reserve of 0.2 on Foundation. It'd be interesting to see someone like Françoise Gamma, how they would perform on Super Rare. Let's see, there are no bids yet, so it'll be interesting to see how this does. So you see more cross-chain action. Dan Control, can't believe another bid on Foundation. Thank you so much, DeFi Ape 2, for the bid. Heart, window for the interior. So a very kind of minimal piece. I think Dan Control is such an interesting artist in just sort of like Ed Marola in that he's just kind of unapologetically himself. He's like, this is not, it's just not a typical work or a work that you think, okay, this is going to be the headline news sort of thing. But again, it's very creative and he's just being true to himself. And so he got a bid of 0.1. So he is moving up too. So anyways, interesting moves here. Yuri JJJJ, or let's just call him Yuri J, like his handle on Twitter here. Mirror, so he was doing well. He got a 0.4 ETH bid on Super Rare where he put out his Genesis work. And now Mirror sold on secondary for 50 Tezos. So we were wondering with Louis Osborne after his Genesis if we'd see a pickup in sales. We didn't, but you did see it with Yuri J. Maybe it's coincidence, maybe not. But anyways, really nice work too. Nice one of one, only 50 Tezos, which is what, like $70 these days? So good deal. A few work in progresses. I thought this was really interesting. This guy continues to turn my head. Abdil's Sil Art. Again, this window. It's kind of, again, it reminds me of Die with the Most Likes, but definitely its own thing. just with these screenshots and just like this kind of horror show, but a much different take in it. Lost in My Thoughts at the bottom here, so just kind of interesting. Another work in progress, Gabby Walter, new one of one, so working in Procreate. Really gets a nice painterly feeling here. And we know Gabby actually paints. Like this looks like oil paint almost. Very nice brushwork. So cool. And I think we're going to see that later in the program here. Here's more works in progress. Popple is back. An initial idea for my Not Godzilla piece after Xerox NFT's introduction was on Python-ish organic Zillarex Tokyo. Then I thought a new era needs a new monster in another form but equally destructive, so came by the idea of the billboard junk pile Zilla armed with goofy ads. Okay, sorry for butchering your tweet there, Popple. So here is the piece. We looked at it a couple of days ago, or a few days ago when it was minted. This is what I wanted to show, though. So it's pretty cool how Popple designs his work. I like the graph paper, too. So really builds it out of nothing, these pixel artworks, and so just really interesting. So yeah, just kind of head turning. More works in progress that I thought were interesting. So Louis Osborne with one of his balloons, I think because all his work is animated. So this looks like a work in progress. So just interesting to see that from Louis Osborne. And also Greco, a work in progress. Looks like from the psychiatric series, we saw this bird before. Now there is a ram that has entered the mix, so he's still working on this, but it looks like it's almost done. And also Quilanina with a work in progress of a real painting. And look at, she's really talented, as you can see. I mean, and look at these great gradients. Very interesting artist. Again, kind of mystical visionary meets kind of surreal. Really just on her own trip and doing a really nice job of representing that. So Quilanina, and also on the cross-chain front, back to that Limbo. Hello, my dear friends. The Temple of Time and Memory will drop soon, tomorrow on Thursday on Foundation. This is, so he is on Super Rare now, so this is just the last piece, I think. Well, he's putting a piece out on Foundation before his Genesis. On Super Rare, this is a still image. I am currently refining, animating, and creating the soundtrack. It takes time and memory on your computer. Hope you like it so far. So classic Limbo. Very nice work. The more I look at Limbo's work, I mean, it takes time to really kind of get it. As he put it in another tweet, this isn't just like anime manga art, it's my own thing, and it takes a while to understand that, I think. So I really enjoyed just going back to his work. Night Cities by Gelbarkin. I just thought this was an interesting work that was kind of with the similar sort of colors on Super Rare. This went for 1.1 ETH, again by Gelbarkin. Owner is anonymous. I just thought it was a head-turning work. And another work on Super Rare, our guy Marcelo Pinel put out this pretty amazing work. Let me see. Let me start this. It's pretty long. I mean, pretty long and epic, but I mean, not that long, not too long, that's for sure. I mean, wow. Like, did we even see that part? Like, wow. So anyways, pretty ambitious work from Marcelo Pinel. Lapis Philosophorum. So this looks like, and again, alchemy was a very big theme, surprisingly, you might find in Max Ernst's work. So this looks like the mixing bowl that they use. Based on alchemical manuscripts and emblems depicting the stages in the making of the Philosopher's Stone. If you want like if you're looking for just some great lectures on alchemy, go to Terence McKenna on YouTube and put in Terence McKenna and alchemy, and you're going to get some fabulous, like hours and hours on alchemy, and it's super interesting. So cool work by Marcelo Pinel. Let's just check the market quickly. Reserve price of 3 ETH. So just loaded up yesterday. So let's see how that does. Uxine, I missed the notification on this. I miss a lot of notifications, I find, which makes this show a little harder to do. I use Twitter now. I used to just use the notifications. Anyways, Uxine has a cool work. This has an interesting title too, Embrace Your Diluted Culture. And so an old TV or computer screen, probably an old Mac monitor or something, with some spikes, baseball bat, and some social media iconography and a broken screen. Trademark style, really like the work, sold out right away, I think. Oh no, just taking offers. So if you want to learn how to buy this, you might need to go to his Twitter. Okay, maybe that's why I didn't see it. I think you can turn off notifications as well. So also just a kind of cool work by Uxine, which is, he usually previews his work. Love the old monitor head and the surveillance camera head. Now this guy was interesting. I've never seen him before. Demon Ego. This screams Sigmar Polka, a lot of you will notice. And so, good morning, having a coffee Sunday. So let's just look at his work for a second, Foundation. Because I have never seen, so he has quite different stuff. I'm not sure if he was just posting Sigmar Polka or if that was his work. So hard to say. I mean, if you look at Sigmar Polka, you see here, I'll just make this bigger. You see it's pretty, it's got the cartoons with the brushstrokes basically. And if you don't know Sigmar Polka, I took the opportunity to bring up a few, this is actually a classic. This was, the Museum of Modern Art is where I saw this one. The Spider-Man is super, that's one of my favorite polkas. This is another super classic. Let me just, it's not super high res, supermarkets. I think they called it capitalist realism. We were looking at that on an earlier show, so Superman in the supermarket. So the German answer to Pop and Warhol was Sigmar Polka. Here's more work, and you see almost like an artist. He really liked the layering, and he had a very simple technique in a lot of his work. If I had to boil it down, it was random abstract painting at the bottom, just brushwork, and then something figurative and organized and rational over top. So here you see images would be that rational line making with kind of chaotic. So just an epic contrast, right? You see the same thing here. There's just I call it instant poetry, this method. Warhol used it a ton too, which is you just put a bunch of, let's say, brushwork and then you screen print over top. It's instant poetry because you're working with randomness at the bottom and then you put basically randomness and organized imagery over top, so you just get a natural contrast. Instant poetry. Santiago, asemic writing fun with AI. So I don't know if you've heard of asemic writing, but I was looking it up. Well, I've seen it. There's a bit of a hipster thing a couple of years ago, and it's just this idea of writing in letters that doesn't represent writing. They look like letters. It's like the visuality of writing. And I brought up the Wikipedia here for us. So Santiago, who makes some really nice drawings, was doing some really interesting work with AI. See, we're back at Max Ernst again. First, let's actually see if I brought up a definition. Did I bring up I thought I brought up, maybe it's back here. Here it is. Okay, asemic writing is a wordless open semantic form of writing. The word asemic means having no specific semantic content, so no specific meaning, or without the smallest unit of meaning. Semos, maybe? With the non-specificity of asemic writing, there comes a vacuum of meaning, which is left for the reader to fill in and interpret. All of this is similar to the way one would deduce meaning from an abstract work of art. So basically, if I was to translate that, it's divorcing writing from the meaning, from its meaning. It's divorcing the visuality, the vision, the visual component of writing from meaning. Okay, and so here is an example. And so if we go back to this, you see like these, maybe this is based on Arab letters, I'm not sure, or it's asemic writing, so it can be, I guess it doesn't need to be any alphabet. It's not an alphabet. Max Ernst would do this too. He'd create his own basically characters or letters. He had them in paintings too. Here is just a little hint. I mean, I couldn't find the ones I was looking for. This is probably Ernst too. So you see he would just create his own characters. I mean, it's really remarkable throughout these entire 60 episodes we've done on video here, how Max Ernst is probably the most referenced artist by just someone you can trace ideas back to. And that really, for me, sets off a big siren in my head. I've always loved Ernst, but just talking about art has made me realize just how important he is. It's interesting, very quickly, Ballard saw basically three geniuses in 20th century art. And I think he wrote the essay in the 70s. And he saw the three great geniuses of 20th century art, and there's an essay on that. His name I can't remember. But it's Salvador Dali, Max Ernst, and William Burroughs. Those were his three go-to influences. So I always kind of understood the Dali component, which we explained on an earlier episode, although we'll come back to that because there's a lot to unpack. But he took Freud's dream work and externalized it. That's what Dali did, and I'm probably not going to give enough time to explain that. But very quickly, the dream work, Freud's dream work, is basically a psychoanalyst. When they're analyzing your dreams, there's basically the dream content can be divided into two pieces. The surface content, what you remember of the dream, and the latent content, the underlying unconscious content, the reality. So there's the manifest content and the latent content. The manifest is what you remember. And so the task of the analyst is to decipher what you remember from your dream, the surface content or the manifest content, to decode that and get to the underlying latent content, what is actually going on. So this becomes a Platonic appearance and reality distinction. What you remember is the appearance, and the reality is the task of the analyst to decipher. Ballard argued that Dali externalized Freud back to the solidified dream, that basically we can start to look around us and treat it like a dream that needs to be decoded. Okay, so back to our show, and we'll come back to that more in depth in future episodes here. So just more asemic writing from Max Ernst here. So he did a ton of this stuff. Okay, so anyways, more painting here. Moving on. Levon has another work, and someone mentioned that it's Donnie Darko, which everybody probably watching this probably knows that reference. I've heard of it. I haven't watched the movie. Thank you for that comment on YouTube, though, for explaining it. So another monster that the reference I don't know, but that probably everybody else does, At Auction from Levon. So it'll be very interesting to see how this performs. He has a great collector base there. And Gabby Walter, whose work we were looking at earlier, he has also a digital painting, Chromatic Domination, kind of a dark work here, with this devil figure with a Mickey Mouse, broken Mickey Mouse ears on a leash. So, and an angel with his head on fire, and the crash test dummy with the medieval, it just goes on here, and wings, and I haven't even described everything. So, yeah, is that a caduceus or the snake on anyway, I don't know what's going on there, but pretty interesting work as always. Diego Barro, introducing pattern into his work, I think. So just really interesting work from Diego Barro. So I'm not sure if that's minted yet. We'll check. So combining photography and digital painting. We saw, I think it was Mickey Mouse yesterday from this artist, Nalta. And here's Bugs Bunny, done in that kind of Japanese print style from the late 19th century. And this is just another head-turning work for me. I just really like this. So I thought I'd feature it. Lorna Mills, I'm trying to run through this, guys. I may shorten these episodes. I'm consciously, because it's too much content almost that we're putting out here. Lorna Mills, Minister's Baby. She puts out a lot of work. Why I wanted to feature this one, though, is sign language. This is almost back to asemic writing. Just like this communication theme here. And I just think this is kind of a theme that hasn't been explored that much, and I was just really impressed that she brought up sign language as a theme to be explored. Like, she gets a lot of respect from the contemporary art world. And I think it's for little decisions like this and ideas. So very interesting. One of one for 300. So we're back to Byte by Bit, who we opened this show with. And Byte by Bit just minted this one too. Planet Pixel Cocoon Nebula. These really nice one of one works. Again, Retro Tools, 1988, PC Paint 3.1. Buy them for 9 Tezos. So you gotta love that. And some other works. I picked up this one, Planet Pixel Twin Jet Nebula. So I just think these are so charming. It's such a smart series from my perspective. Stingray Nebula. I just think this series, yeah, you know how I feel about it. And nice little details too in the write-up. I'm not sure if we touched on this one already. We may have already hit this one. But as you can see here, there are a few that he's put out. Yeah, so I think we already hit that one. And here's another one. Don't want to miss this. The Witch Head Nebula. So very, very cool. This one has stars in the background. I just love this series, which is why it was on the cover here. Here was just kind of a weird work that I thought we could pay attention to. Varquito Garcia, a new artist. Just kind of weird pixel art here. Kind of pixelated work. Weird GIF. Buy for 3, edition of 25. Let's see how they're doing. Yeah, has sold a few. Dan Control and Byte by Bit. So again, you see how small this community is here. I think it was maybe Byte by Bit who had tweeted this out. So that's how I came across this. So artists finding artists. Holiday Salts was just kind of an interesting, I guess I'd call this a digital work. Sketches for this kind of labyrinth thing I may be building. Figure I'll finally turn my desk drawer novel into a piece of completely uncollectible net art since I miss that genre. Yeah, it's kind of like a net art sort of thing. I mean, we see the Photoshop canvas in the background, just trying stuff out. And I found that kind of interesting. We have a few digital pieces like that here. The Surveillance Ghost. This is available on Super Rare by Sobe. I wonder how that's doing here. See, a reserve price of 0.33, no bids, but just kind of an interesting, again, I like to call this stuff digitalia. And here's some more of that kind of work. Xanet Potobed, The Voice Within, available on Super Rare. So also available. When you know how to listen to yourself, you make the decisions that are right for you personally and build the life you want. So it looks like a head there, someone contemplating themselves. Michael Schneider, this was just kind of in a similar vein here, just experimental digital images. This looked like it was like a digital sampled brush, and that made me think of someone else. So just kind of an interesting work. I don't know if you know Otto Ford. I don't think he'd probably do fabulous with NFTs. He's about my age. I think he was born in 78. He might actually be a little older. I was born in 79. Otto Ford, The Guts of Guston, 2017. I saw his work years ago on Instagram, and he seems to be sampling brushes, or making brushes out of samples, and then making these beautiful paintings out of them. And he prints them out, and they come out quite nice. You can see them at Gnip Gallery sometimes here in Berlin. I went to a show, and yeah, they come out. They're very impressive in real life. So Otto Ford, very minimal Instagram there. So that kind of reminded me of that. It's kind of a bit of a Popple themed show here. He's having a moment here, at least on this show. He's talking about AI art. So let me just look at this original tweet here. This is really interesting to think of in context of AI. So people are replying to tweets. Actually, I'll start with Popple. That's an interesting perspective. I do feel that I enjoy drawing much more after generating thousands of images with various crazy prompts from Stable Diffusion from Google Collabs with 5 accounts taking turns. That's a good idea. Get a lot of different accounts, so you get a lot of free credits. I think that's what he's talking about. But this was the point. This is why I wanted to highlight this. I feel I enjoy drawing much more after using a bunch of AI. So this person is talking about AI-assisted creativity tools, Mimo. If we can get a major dopamine hit from typing a few words in a prompt box, are there long-term effects of consistent use? Applies to many low-effort, high-reward tech, to be honest, social media for one. So in response to that, Popple's saying, I like drawing even more. So it's just kind of interesting to hear people talk about their experiences and how maybe Popple likes drawing more after using AI, as we continue to just try and have a comprehensive view of AI. So here's a combination AI and digital painting from what is Sienna, and this is her. I believe it's a her. This is her third painting, or fourth. I missed the third. Again, not getting my notifications here. So you can see them all here. I find them very attractive works, and I love that contrast between digital painting and AI generation. Here is an artist I don't think I've seen before, but it looks like we've seen before. Somfe. So this kind of reminds me a little bit of Javier Tomeo, right? And I think why I found this interesting is A, it's attractive and a nice work by Somfe. But I think what I also found attractive is the similarities we're starting to see as more and more people make landscapes. And it's not totally similar, but you are starting to see these qualitative similarities. See this maybe double landscape in the sky. We're not quite there, but it's approaching that. More works. I don't know. And this is another one. We saw the artist with the huge windows. Remember that, for those that saw? I'm not sure if this is the same artist or not, Charles AI.eth. Because if it's not, then it's just another similarity, but maybe it's the same artist. So I'm just not sure. So I'm just kind of going through these works. Again, head-turning work. And this is also by Charles AI, but didn't we see Indy Doe had the circles, right? And so it's very interesting to see. And I almost feel like the artists themselves are almost becoming the tools of the AI. That the AI software technology is producing has a tendency to produce certain kinds of works. And the artists are really the ones who are kind of being the tool to a certain degree. It's tempting to think when you start to see these similarities, who's using who? Just opening that up here, because it's kind of a very interesting question here, because we're starting to see some very interesting similarities. Okay, and I don't think it's artists necessarily copying artists. I think it's the tools. Planetarium. And all of these do have their distinct feels. And these could be the same artist, but I'm pretty sure Indy Doe was the one who was doing a lot of circles, and we saw some clown vamp. We are seeing similarities here. So anyways, cool work here, beautiful colors. The reason I put them on is because they're beautiful, okay? So just in case any artists are watching. Week 3 of Detective Jack. So also what I'm calling a visual novel here from Clown Vamp is out. So we saw, again, in an earlier episode, how there is a massive process that Clown Vamp is saying he goes through for each of these images. Thousands of iterations. I really like this cloud up here and this contrast. So that's very interesting. So a church, what looks like in a suburb somewhere, kind of a 1950s pulp, detective pulp. And we're back with this idea of pulps and how well AI art works with pulps. Okay? So again, it's like, who's using who here? The AI seems to want to produce certain kinds of work, and maybe that's the input. I guess I need to use these tools more. So Clown Vamp making some very interesting works here. This is something that Ramin Nazibov just posted, and this is a real-life work by someone who I don't believe is on the blockchain, Filter by Anna Bjerger. But I thought it was just a nice place to end us here. And if you want to buy this, you can go to Artsy. And it's 600 euros. So it's nice to, which is $600 US these days. So it's nice to actually contrast all our prices here on the NFT blockchain. And once in a while, I think it's actually a good idea just to ground ourselves a little bit. What's selling on Artsy and what are those prices going for? And all of a sudden, what's the edition number? I don't see here. Original lithograph printed on 300 gram vellon dash paper. So is that a one of one? Because 600 euros is starting to be, it's not crazy for a one of one. We see some AI works going for more than that. There you go, folks. That is your show. Thank you for watching. Until next time, take care.